In 1910, 7 of the most powerful men in American finance traveled in secret to a private island off the coast of Georgia. They traveled at night, by train, using only their first names to avoid recognition. The island was called Jekyll Island. There were 7 men. The result of that meeting was the United States Federal Reserve. And what nobody tells you is that institution was never owned by the government. The Federal Reserve, the Fed, was created by the Federal Reserve Act signed by President Woodrow Wilson on December 23, 1913. It is the central bank of the United States, but it is not a federal government agency. It is a private entity composed of 12 regional reserve banks, whose shareholders are the private commercial banks of each district. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the most powerful in the system, counts J.P. Morgan Chase and Citibank among its shareholders. This is not contested. The Fed itself acknowledges the structure. In 1982, in the case Lewis v. United States, the Ninth Circuit Court determined that Federal Reserve banks are private entities with public character, not government agencies. You can verify this in federal judicial records. Now, the 7 men who gathered at Jekyll Island in November 1910. Nelson Aldrich, Republican senator and father-in-law of John D. Rockefeller Jr., Abraham Piet Andrew, Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, Frank Vanderlip, President of the National City Bank of New York, the predecessor of Citibank, Henry Davison, Senior Partner of J.P. Morgan & Company, Charles Norton, President of the First National Bank of New York, Benjamin Strong, who would become the first President of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and Paul Warburg, partner at Kuhn, Loeb & Co., representing interests directly linked to Rothschild banking in Europe. These are not theoretical figures, they are named individuals with historical records. Senator Aldrich publicly acknowledged the meeting years later. Frank Vanderlip described it in the Saturday Evening Post in 1935. Economist G. Edward Griffin documented the episode in The Creature from Jekyll Island, published in 1994. What did they design at Jekyll Island? A system in which the government issues debt, treasury bonds, and the central bank purchases them by creating new money. The government pays interest on that debt, perpetually. There is no mechanism within the Federal Reserve's design by which the U.S. national debt could reach zero. The system requires debt in order to function. The U.S. national debt in 1913, the year the Fed was created, was approximately $2.9 billion. In 2024, it exceeds $34 trillion. That is the number the system was designed to produce. But the Jekyll Island model was not an American innovation. It was the replication of something older, the Bank for International Settlements, known as the BIS, founded in Basel, Switzerland in 1930. The BIS is the Bank of Central Banks, the institution that coordinates the monetary policies of the world's central banks. It has no public shareholders. It has no democratic accountability. It holds diplomatic immunity. And here is the pattern that economics courses do not teach you. Countries that are not aligned with the BIS and the Western central banking system cannot access international capital markets under normal conditions. The practical result is financial isolation, which manifests as economic sanctions. In 2001, 3 countries did not have a Western-style central bank integrated into the BIS system: Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya. In 2003, Iraq was invaded. In 2001, Afghanistan was invaded. In 2011, Libya was subjected to NATO military intervention. All 3 countries, following a military intervention, established central banks aligned with the Western system. Is that the only cause of those wars? No. Is it a coincidence that the 3 countries without an aligned central bank in 2001 were the 3 subjected to military intervention in the following decade? Review the pattern. The countries that today remain outside the BIS system, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, face permanent economic sanctions. Their isolation from the international banking system is not a consequence of their policies. It is the pressure mechanism itself. The system of perpetual debt is not a historical accident. It is an architecture. It was designed at a secret meeting in November 1910. It was signed into law in December 1913. And since then, it has been replicated in more than 180 countries. But who exactly controls that architecture today? What does the Rothschild power map look like in the 21st century when the surname rarely appears in headlines? The answer lies in how invisibility was constructed, and in where it can be seen if you know precisely where to look.